Welcome Meg O'Conor Banneker of Banneker Public Affairs and Life Science Washington Workforce Consultant, who will be moderating our panel today addressing Washington's life science workforce challenges.
Thank you to the voice of God up there. Brian, very nice job. Well, what a vantage point I have had with Leslie over the last 10 months. We have been out to your companies, we've been learning about your innovative technologies, we have talked with your HR people about their day-to-day challenges. We've also been connecting with educational leaders, talking with administrators in our higher education colleges across the region. We've talked with their students, we've talked with biotech high school teachers, of which there are plenty, and we've talked with dozens of STEM advocates. And we've done this to better understand where the life science industry can engage with education and where the opportunities are to get started right away. 1 year ago, this community decided that workforce development was going to be its highest priority. And within months, Leslie and I asked for your help. Many of you who are really busy people, you answered our call. You showed up at meetings. And you told us about some of your company's toughest challenges, hiring terrific people with the right skills to come into your company and get the job done. The community also got involved because, as more than one HR professional told us, we simply cannot recruit our way out of this challenge. It's time to look inside the state of Washington. The other thing I think that brought us together is the fact that projects like this just don't come along that often, where you can reach out and have an impact on the lives of tens of thousands of kids. And so people were just eager to do that because they love kids. They've got kids in their lives, and they see that there are great jobs in this industry that are going unfilled, and some of our children know nothing about this sector and all the verticals it represents. So our starting point, and of course no newsflash here, is that there are hundreds of great jobs available in the state of Washington. Biomanufacturing, bioengineering, medical device manufacturing, biotechnology. The companies are large and small. And the fact that I'm talking about manufacturing is really exciting. That is on an upswing in our state, and it's something we haven't seen before. And what this means is that we can now start to look to a broader number of individuals to come and take a look at our companies in our sector. Maybe they're individuals who don't have a 4-year degree. Maybe instead they have a 2-year degree or a terrific certificate that puts them right in the running for a great job where they can use the skills that they've learned elsewhere. I forgot about my slides. Maybe they did too. Are they up there? No, I'm up there. Okay, we need slides. I gotta put my glasses on too because I won't be able to see them. There they are, okay. So take a look at that. Right now, only 40% of our students who cross that stage and capture their diploma, only 40% have a plan to go on to post-secondary education. 40%. So we've got to do something about that. And we need to start when they're kids, because there's research that shows by middle school, young people are already starting to formulate opinions about what they like, what they don't like. You know, many cast off math and science as too hard. Algebra is a huge stumbling point for young people. The state of Washington recognizes this too, and as they have been focused on STEM education for many years, they're now starting to tie that together with the opportunities for careers in our state, and that's different. There we go. So the project is called Career Connect Washington, and hopefully the young people in your life are going to tell you more about it as well. It was just handed to the governor yesterday by Maud Dodon, the former leader of the Seattle Chamber of Commerce. She has taken this on and with great gusto. And the goal is by the year 2030 to have 70% of our kids graduating and entering into a career launch experience. Now that could be going to college. It could also be a paid internship or an apprenticeship. It could also be a great certificate that gives them applied skills, again, to go to work. So, and the nice thing about Career Connect Washington is that we have had a seat at the table. Leslie Alexander and Hans Bishop, as Leslie mentioned earlier, they have been involved with this, and they are wholeheartedly endorsing it, and we will be asking for your help in implementing it. So now it's my pleasure to introduce people who have been there on this project for some time. They've been extraordinary volunteers with terrific ideas. So I would like to welcome to the stage, are they here? I thought they were here. My guests, Gustavo Mahler, Sean McClain, Senator Guy Palumbo, and Kelly Snyder. And I'm going to invite you guys to more formally introduce yourselves and tell you how you have come to this issue. So I want to start by asking the audience a question. How many of you have jobs open in your companies? Raise your hand if you know you have jobs open in your companies. Come on, raise them higher. Okay, and how many of you are optimistic that those jobs are going to be filled near term? Yeah. So that's where we are. There are hundreds of jobs out there. So I want to start with each of you to address that. And we're just going to go down the line. Sean, why do you think there's so many fantastic jobs? What are we not doing that perhaps other states are doing?
I think one of the things is really focusing on our youth and internship programs, and one of the things AbSci is doing is really empowering high school students and college students through internships at AbSci, and that's one thing that we are doing in AbSci to help with education and really giving the students the job experience that's needed, whether it's working for our company or other companies out there.
And we're going to get into more details about that, but I also am remiss because I didn't ask you to introduce yourself as well. I'm sure you guys would like to know a little more about these wonderful people. So just give me your introduction first, Sean, and then we'll move down the line on that.
Yeah, so I'm Sean McClain, the CEO and founder of AbSci, and AbSci is a biotech company that's focusing on developing next generation technologies for biomanufacturing and drug discovery.
All right, Gustavo.
Okay, hello, my name is Gustavo Mahler. I'm the CEO of AGC Biologics. We are one of the largest biologics contract development and contract manufacturing organizations with facilities in Europe, Japan, and US, and we are headquartered in Bothell, Washington.
Okay.
I'm State Senator Guy Palumbo, Fightin' First. I represent the Fightin' First, which is where Canyon Park is, where many of your companies are. Prior to that, I came out to Seattle in 1998 for a job at Amazon. Worked there for about 6 years. I quit, and now I own a small dog kennel business called Roscoe's Ranch, which is how I make my money. That's my day job. And then I got elected in 2016, and now I'm a state senator.
Hi, good morning. I'm Kelly Snyder with the University of Washington, the Bothell campus. I've been there 10 years, and in that short period of time, we've gone from 1,700 to 6,000 students. So it's sort of like working for a startup company. You might relate to that. We're doing just extraordinary things in the Bothell area and the region and helping to help serve so many of your companies in the future.
Gustavo, I want to ask you, since you have witnessed this for several years, the need to hire people, why do you think, why has it been so difficult? Can you kind of sum up the key bullet points that come to mind?
Well, there are several factors, right? One of those is mainly that our region went through a slump during 2010-11. A lot of companies shut it down, some companies left. We had a couple of hiccups of companies going up and bust. And what that generated is that some of the pool of existing people in the region left. At the same time, we were slow on generating new people from the pipeline of academias. A lot of people get good formation in the undergraduate degree and degree careers, but they are not ready to actually jump into a manufacturing, a quality, QC job, or a regulatory job. They have a gap of knowledge there. So they are not, there is no alignment exactly between the programs in the universities and what is needed by the industry, and that's something that is one of the gaps too. When we started to ramp up like crazy, all the industry in the area, we were included in that. At the beginning, we tapped on those people that actually were left behind by the companies that were actually shutting down or reducing their presence in the area. But after that, there was no way to get a sufficient pipeline to fulfill. So what started to happen is we started to relocate people. And that is a very expensive and traumatic process and not always works. We live in a great area. I love I relocated here 10 years ago. I love the area, but the reality is that some people don't like the Seattle area and they end up moving back, right? So it's not always a successful event. And then comes the third part. So we try to tap from outside, and then we started to steal from each other and started to compete for salary on conditions, but still it's not enough. So I think the main issues are the huge growth that is very positive, right, but generates an issue. The misalignment between the formation of people and the time it takes to get somebody ready to get to a job and what the industry needs at this point in time. And also, I will say from our side as companies, not having predict that we needed to step in and do some work to actually feed that pipeline of people into our direction. That I think is what we are trying to do now.
Right. Kelly, the University of Washington needs to work with all sectors, from aerospace to IT and agriculture. How are we doing as a sector in the economy? And what do we need to do to do a better job of tapping into the rich pool of young people that cross, your threshold every day?
Great question. So increasing awareness, as the research shows, it's the middle schoolers who really need to have that awareness that this industry is available, that they're doing an amazing and incredible things. We heard some just amazing stories of success, but it's also our college students, high schoolers and college students, whether at the 2-year level, technical college, or at the 4-year level. They really need to understand. And we were on the phone with Leslie on Friday, and we talked about, gosh, we have this great discovery core that we have for our first-year incoming freshmen, and we want to introduce an entire line so that they understand what this sector does. We want to have all of you, maybe not all of you, but many of you, we want to have you in the classroom. We want you talking about the research you're doing. We want you to inspire these students with the great stories of success, but also the challenges, because as we all know, success comes from lots and lots of failure, and making sure that they understand that persistence, that energy, that drive is there, and that they can take those biology degrees or chemistry degrees or physics degrees or computer science, data management. All of those things are incredibly important with all of you in all of your companies. So getting in the classroom, working with our students on internships and capstone projects, seeing who you are. I know you all are super tight on time, and but that small bit of time that we could use you, please come to our institutions, not just Bothell. Well, of course, we'll all take you at Bothell, but all across the state of Washington, WSU, Western, Central, Eastern, we are all doing our best. We hear you. We know that you want the pipeline. You want these Washington State students. They're incredibly talented. They just need to have greater awareness about what you're doing out there.
And as we develop programs that expose young people to companies, this is for you, Senator Palumbo, a lot of our companies are small, they're perhaps raising money, many are raising money, and in many places, scientists have very little bandwidth to look up, not only to supervise an intern, but to pay an intern. And that's a vital issue, is to make sure that these are not taking students away from income jobs, which are often an important part of their family structure. So can you talk a little bit about how you imagine the legislature responding to the Career Connect Washington project, and whether there might be some incentive for companies to hire young people as interns?
Sure. I mean, we obviously, on incentives, we have to get the R&D tax credit back, which obviously affects your industry, but it's not really related to workforce dev. But we absolutely do. One of the outtakes of the study that we just did that you heard about earlier, the gap analysis, says that we have to put together an Amtech-like, if you know the Boeing facility up in Everett, to train aerospace workers. It's basically a collaboration, a public-private partnership between universities and industry where they bring the latest equipment, just like you all have. What's the latest equipment that you want people trained on to get those skills there? So I think that that's one of the things that we have to work on that was in the gap analysis. That's a multiple-year thing. It costs money. We're probably going to be needing to lean on the people in this room to help us fund that. At least in terms of the expertise. So for those smaller companies, if we can get that off the ground, coming and just training a class or teaching a class, or you were talking about, you know, if we have high school kids coming in, explaining to them what your job's about, because what we found in Career Connect and all the evidence, whether it's you know, computer technology or life sciences, is that if kids in middle school are touching it, if they're feeling it, if they're seeing it, it becomes real for them. It becomes something that they might actually want to do. So they don't wind up at Kelly's door or Eric Murray's door at Cascadia not knowing what they want to do with their lives. They know they need to get a degree, but they don't really know what they want to do. That's really where it starts. So, I mean, even if you can't do an intern, just trying to help local schools to educate kids is something that's low cost that you can probably do as well.
I want to jump over to Sean because you're a small company. How many, you have about 38 folks?
28.
28, okay. I'm being ambitious here. And you have a robust internship program, which I want you to tell us about, but I also want you to talk a little bit about the relationship that you have with Washington State University in Vancouver.
Yeah, so we started, we founded the company 7 years ago, and 2 years into AbSci, we decided that we wanted to start empowering the next generation of scientists and innovators. And so we started an internship program that actually started with one high school student. And we gave her a project and allowed her to critically think about what she was working on. And you could really see her transform and get excited about the science. And that right there was just like, hit the nail on the head. It's like, we need to be doing more of this and really empowering the next generation to be like, hey, you guys can do this. It doesn't matter what age you guys are. And so we have continued this program, and now we have basically 3 different types of internship programs at AbSci. So we have a high school internship program, a college internship program, and then a post-grad internship program, which is more of a internship to hire. And through this, we've continued with the project-based internships where they're not just doing the grunt work and you know, putting washing dishes and using the autoclave. They're actually doing molecular biology, biochemistry, and solving problems that our other scientists are solving. And it's really amazing to see them transform and become scientists. And I look at some of these high school students, I'm like, you're way smarter than I ever was. and so that's what we're doing, and this is allowing them to see what the biotechnology field is, and our hope is that they're going to stay here in the region and take jobs either at AbSci or other companies in this region, and so that's what we're doing with our internship program at AbSci.
It's fantastic. Gustavo, I see you locking in on Sean. Do you have questions for him as AGC thinks about its own internship program that is in the works?
Well, how I wasn't there. How difficult was for you to actually integrate those interns, because they come for a certain amount of time, they do some work, it takes a ramp up of training, and then they may leave after that. So how difficult was for you to integrate? Because a lot of companies have hesitation on getting interns due to the ramp up, and and then once you train somebody, they leave. You need to start again, right?
Yeah, so I can actually say that all of our interns that we've had have continued to come back each and every year. So they'll have the summer break or the winter break, and they're continually coming back and working on the projects that they had, because they're excited to get back in the lab. And so this was the first year we did the internship to hire, and we hired all 3 of our interns right afterwards. And so I'd say that we found if they're engaged, they come back and they want to continue working at AbSci.
Gustavo, do you want to talk a little bit about your vision for AGC's project?
Well, and, you know, we have a different challenge than other companies, you know, from the early phase, that we are a manufacturer, right? And for a while, we were one of the few manufacturers. Now that's ramping up with Juno growing and other companies also building some manufacturing capability. But what we focus on is some process development and manufacturing. So beyond needing people with undergraduate or graduate degrees, we also need people that will actually perform manufacturing activity or technician level activity. And what we found is that there is very few standard formation of these type of people. You don't have a lot of ways to get people. And if you get an undergraduate student to run in a manufacturing floor, for a while, they will work and then they will look for a job that is less painful than that, right? So what we wanted to do is actually to create a source of opportunity for people in high school. I have kids in high school. I see what they can do. I actually was a high school student that got a technical degree in another country. And I was able, after I was 17 years old, to work directly in an operation like the ones we run. So we came up with the idea of why couldn't we get people from high school, kids in 11th grade, to do an internship, a paid apprenticeship in our company. So they learn the basic skills. We train them specifically for manufacturing, quality control, quality assurance, and QC, and also some technical activities. And they learn these skills, and at the end of that time, they can either be hired by us or they have skills that are pretty marketable to get into another company to work in similar activities. That actually creates several advantages. One is, one of the statistics we didn't show there is that there is a significant amount of dropout from high school.
That's right.
And this will create a line of sight where you can get a job paying $45,000, $50,000 a year on entry level, in a career where you can actually enjoy your entire life and highly qualified. So that may create a line of sight for kids that may need to leave the school to work, to make money for themselves, to actually continue and finish high school, so they actually can get a decent job at the end. For us, it creates a source of people that we can train specifically with the skills we really need, and grow that pool of people that we can actually recruit from. And honestly, it creates also an advantage for the whole region, because we understand we may not be able to hire everybody, but some of our people that are here will also benefit from that. And we understand that that's part of the risk. But if we don't invest, that will not happen. So we are taking that at this point in time, moving forward. Our first group of people will actually start in January next year, sorry. And we expect to have a bigger group starting after, in September, after school starts again. We are working with the high school in Edmonds on this program, and we are looking now of other high schools in the area, in the Bothell area, that we can work with to expand the program.
And it's been a really exciting project. Life Science Washington has helped a little bit in putting the right people in the room. And I'll just share this quick anecdote. When the Edmonds School District presented this to their school board, and you know, this is still in pilot, it was still in the pilot idea stage, and it's still in development, but one student, they have student representatives on their school board, and after it was presented, two students came up to the individual who shared the information and said, "Where do I sign up?" So you could just get a sense that this is something that young people are going to respond to. But if they all respond and they're all driving cars, Senator Palumbo, let's talk a little bit about infrastructure. Because when you came up with the $300,000 that not only funded the gap analysis, where we studied what the training is that separates our colleges from our industry, you also put some of those dollars into infrastructure and economic analysis. So can you talk a little bit about how these issues connect and your thinking as the region grows to make it movable and fun?
Yeah, absolutely. My favorite topic, transportation, which is basically all my district cares about. So, you know, in the last 10 years, there's been, and anybody that's in Canyon Park knows this already, but, you know, there's been a flight out of Seattle. They haven't upzoned their city. As a result, they're not building the housing that people want. They can't afford it there. So where are they moving? They moved to South Snohomish County. And that happened for the last 10 years. I think for 5 years running, we were the #1 single-family new home sales market in the state. That's now ebbed because you can't afford an affordable house now in South Snohomish and North Creek. So people are now moving out to Lake Stevens, Monroe, Darrington, Marysville, which means people keep driving and traffic gets worse. So stepping backwards, right when I got elected in 2016, I was very lucky. Governor Inslee held a panel with the Department of Commerce, Brian Bonlander as well, right after I got elected, and Kelly was there, with many of the CEOs and the people in this room in Canyon Park. And I always ask the same question, and in that meeting and then subsequent meetings that I've been at UW with Kelly, with the roundtable that you have, I always ask the same question: what could I do as a state legislator to bring more jobs here and to make the jobs here better? And I always hear the same two things from your industry. I can't get people in and out of Canyon Park, and I don't have enough talent. And those are just two things that we can solve. So regarding 405, the future, it's going to be a big year next year, I believe. So I'm going to get a little wonky, but the way to fix the issue that we have in 405 is that we have to bet about $450 million for 2 phases of the 522 and 405 interchange. So it's basically completely redoing that interchange, adding an additional lane capacity going up to 527 to Canyon Park from 522 in both directions. And then additionally adding direct connectors, what they call direct connectors, so transit and HOV people can just immediately get onto the lane on 405. That will solve a huge amount of our issues up here in the Bothell area. It costs a lot of money that we don't have. So what it looks like right now is there's probably going to be a big hairy toll vote, as we're calling it, that's going to try to put together 167, 405 together in the same tolling corridor and then bond that revenue out. It's a very controversial vote. I expect it to come up next year. It may not. It may come up the following year. But if that happens, that's going to be how we fund it. In the absence of that, we would need a pretty massive gas tax just for our projects for the Canyon Park Life Sciences cluster. So I don't think that's realistic. So I think that's probably the only way we're going to get this done. And then so just on traffic. So that's how we got to go about it. We also have to make the BRT work. So in Sound Transit 3, the only real transit that we got that might alleviate the 405 congestion is Bus Rapid Transit, BRT. And right now, that BRT is slated to be sitting in those same general purpose lanes that we sit in that are failing between 527 and 522. So it's not even a rapid bus, it's just a bus. And it doesn't get you anything. You might as well just be in your car listening to your radio. Nobody's going to get out of a single occupancy vehicle to get in a bus that's in the same traffic. So, we have to make that system work. And then additionally, we have to get a parking garage, in my opinion, at Canyon Park. Because when you knock on thousands of doors like I have to get elected, over 21,000 doors, what you hear over and over again in our neighborhood is, I would love to take a bus. I would love to get on a train. I can't park anywhere if I don't get there by 7 a.m. And in Canyon Park, we've got this little postage stamp size lot that we could build up on. Unfortunately, WSDOT and Sound Transit don't believe in parking. So I'm kind of fighting that alone right now to say, hey, we actually have to get some parking here. And then finally, there's the ACES group, which some of you may know from Bellevue. I don't know if they're in the room today with Bruce Agnew. But they're trying to do some shared company employee shuttles. And we're going to try to pilot that next year in Canyon Park so that we can get your workers down to the restaurants for lunch or down to the park and ride, down to the transit, between your campuses. So we're going to be looking for leadership from you as well on that to hopefully help us steer that.
Kelly, as you hear this, I'm sure you're thinking about your students getting around as well because it is such a car-oriented area. And you also mentioned the growth on your campus. You have your eye on expansion in your STEM program. Can you talk a little bit about that? The new building that is in the works and how that ties into your game plan for meeting the needs for more science and math graduates?
Absolutely. So yesterday we got great news. So there's a whole bunch of steps to get a final vote from the House and the Senate and a final budget for the capital investments. Yesterday, Office of Financial Management had put out the rankings for all the higher education facility capital requests, and Bothel's $35 million STEM building is number 2 on the list. We're really excited about that, very thrilled. We can't wait for you all to come down to Olympia to advocate not just for our building, but I looked really closer at the list. And half of the growth buildings that are being proposed by higher education are in life sciences. We hear you. We know that we need to increase our production. We are limited with our literal facilities number of square feet per student. We need more bricks and mortar. We have to someplace to put the students. We have to put our equipment somewhere. We have to put our faculty somewhere. We literally need space to make those things happen. So we're thrilled about that for ourselves. We're also thrilled for the whole industry because we know that we need more capacity across the state of Washington. But of course, Bothell is number 1 on my heart.
Senator.
If I may just jump on that, you brought up a good point about the capital infrastructure. It goes to the workforce development. So it doesn't matter if it's life sciences or my world where I come from, computer science. Those kids, if they graduate from Kelly's program today in cybersecurity and any of the biology degrees, they've got a job waiting for them. Computer science. And in this state, we're the #1 importer of baccalaureate STEM degrees, we're not producing enough. And when I got there, one of the first things I realized is that a lot of this is fixable. It's a capital infrastructure bottleneck. So institutions like Kelly's or Eric Murray's at Cascadia, it takes on average 14 years to get a new building from state funding. That's unacceptable, right? I mean, that's a bottleneck we could fix tomorrow. You cannot turn kids away. It's a sin to turn kids away in high-demand fields like this where they have great jobs waiting for them because she doesn't have somewhere to teach them. That is unacceptable, and we have to fix that. That's a capital funding problem. I put together a bill in the first year. It didn't really take off. I might bring it back next year. That would basically just do a public-private partnership. So, you get the naming rights. Let's say her building costs $40 million. Maybe we can do 20 from the state and 20 from industry if it's going to crank out 500 more biologists a year or manufacturers or whatever it is. But we have to look for those public-private partnerships that happen at UW Seattle because they have a large donor base, but it doesn't happen in other institutions. They can't rely on, our friend Bill Gates to fund a building at Shoreline, for example. But that's where they have a program that's giving you the workers you need. And if they've got a facility need, we need to figure out creative ways to do that.
Sean, does this resonate with the capacity in Vancouver? Are you seeing the same thing?
Yeah, we are, and we're actually really excited about the partnership we're building with WSU Vancouver. We are partnering up with the biology and biochemistry departments there to help train the students and build curriculum around biomanufacturing and drug discovery techniques that are needed in the industry. And so we feel like that private government partnership is really necessary to ultimately succeed no matter where you're at, whether you're in Seattle or in Vancouver, Washington.
And when you talk about examining curricula or designing programs that work hand in glove with industry and education, how have you been able to gather your colleagues to join in that discussion and to make time for it? Because I think that I'm asking you that because as Leslie and I think about, creating enthusiasm around these issues and talking with our institutions of higher education, we are going to need involvement from industry. You're a small company. You found time for it. So what should we be saying?
I think it's just reaching out to the local universities and finding the key contacts there, and honestly, they're wanting to engage and be involved in this type of process, and so I think it's just getting out there and knocking on the right doors. And
I'm actually, and that's great advice, but I'm actually thinking about you're a busy guy.
Yeah.
Other people in industrial biosciences are really busy. What should we say to those folks in order for them to come to the table? And you're all supposed to listen to this one.
I think it really starts in the organization that you're at. One person can't do it in the company. I can't do it myself. I actually got buy-in from the whole team at AbSci, and they were really excited about this. And so it turned into a team effort in terms of tackling this problem. And so I think it's getting that buy-in from the company's leadership and then the rest of the companies in order to make the time necessary to do this.
I understand that one of the other keys to your success is that AbSci has brought in a chief morale officer. Can we put up the picture of our chief morale officer? There she is, Penelope. Did you know that we were going to put that on there?
No, I did not.
Leslie met Penelope. Leslie met Penelope when she went down to visit Sean. Anyway, we just thought he was so cute that we had to put her in her. But all kidding aside, talking to Gen Z it may be a little bit different. You know, to get them to look up from their phones, or do we need to engage them through social media? You know, I've got teenagers, and I know that they don't necessarily want to hear what I have to say often. So what's the secret sauce at AbSci?
Well, our employees do love that we have a dog-friendly office, and I have to say with our chief morale officer here, Penelope, I didn't think that I was going to have to tell our chief morale officer that she can't sleep on the job, but that, you know, that's happened once or twice. But one thing that we've found in engaging with the new generation and students that are graduating is transparency. People of millennials want companies that are transparent with them and will tell them the truth about the company and the organization. And so we try our best to communicate what's really going on in AbSci. Where are the strengths? Where are weaknesses? And we also have a lot of fun as well. But that's been something that we've gotten really good feedback from is transparency and being real with your employees, and whether it's you're going through a rough time or you're sharing in the excitement and the growth.
The other thing I would think, and I know this is what brought many people in this room to the industry, is the focus on human health, on making the world a better place. Gustavo, is that part of your vision with the students you're going to be working with, and your company in general, working towards internal communications that emphasize we're all working to save lives?
Yeah, that's actually a very important point. You mentioned also how to engage kids at the early stage. I personally volunteer in middle school sometime too, right? So, and it's interesting because, you know, there is a lot of STEM programs going on now, but the S in the STEM program is very low. I think we're a very tech-oriented region, and not always the kids see the side of the S on that side. And when you explain kids, and then when you explain interns and your own employees, you know, the impact of the work we do. In our case, we work with, at this point in time, globally 120 different molecules that we are developing. And when you develop all those products, not all will make to become a commercial product, but many do. And when you bring patients and they hear the story from patients, as was referred in the previous talks, on the impact of these products, they realize that this job is not just a job. I see around, and probably everybody around this room didn't choose this job for being just a job. It has a ultimate meaning of providing treatment to people that are suffering a terrible disease and cure them or help them manage that disease through life. And it has an impact for those patients and also for their families. So we actually reinforce that message within our company, but also with the people that we are trying to bring in this case, in these programs we're trying to do with high schools and the programs we do with internships with colleges, that this is not just a job in the lab where you do cool stuff and touch very cool pieces of equipment, but and have fun with other people, but also you are creating products that are actually saving lives, and it have a huge impact in the overall community as well and patients. So that's something we emphasize all the time when we talk internally with our company. As I agree with Sean, it's important to have this transparency with employees. We have monthly meetings where our management directly talk to the employees on what's going on with the company, but also what are the treatments that we are developing and how they are impacting patients.
I want to pause there and ask if anybody in the audience would like to ask a question of our panel about workforce development, about the challenge of bringing young people into the awareness of bioscience careers. So if you have any questions, please feel free to. Oh yeah, we'll have to borrow Sean's.
First of all, does anyone in the audience have a question? So I'd like to ask Kelly, because you are really representing our institutes of higher education in addition to UW-Bothell. And as I said, in that gap analysis, we had 6 community and technical colleges participating, as well as UW-Bothell. And you've now seen the report findings. As I said, the leaders from these institutions have begun to convene and think about how do we start moving forward. And there are many actions that need to be taken. What do you at UW-Bothell, but also thinking about our community and technical colleges, what do you need from industry to move these things forward? So we've got some great degree programs, but we found out a lot of them are not really relevant in the fullest sense to what industry needs. If we're going to turn that around, how do we do it? And again, specific ideas.
Well, I think it's a partnership. First, this report was extremely helpful to tell us, not just us, but others, where are those gaps in our curriculum. You shared with us what it is that we need to do. We're going to go do that. We are meeting with our faculty. We're rounding them up. We're working with the community and technical colleges and putting their faculty with ours and saying it's a pipeline too. We get lots of transfer students, so we need to make sure that they're ready to go. We turn away 200 students a year for our STEM program, and that's just not acceptable. So, and that's growing. Our STEM program at UW-Bothell is a third of our population now. The students and their families are getting it. They know that there's something, there's those jobs out there. They don't know sure what they are yet, but we're going to try to figure out. So increasing awareness, I mentioned that earlier, having you in the classroom, helping us on our advisory boards, mentoring our students, coming to the career fairs, showing what those types of degree offerings that they need, what type of skills and talents. It was actually on a tour a couple of years ago at AGC, and what we learned, and we were designing our last STEM building, we needed to have a clean room. Students were not coming out prepared to go work in clean rooms, so we modified the design. We put a clean room in, and we worked with industry to design it, and now our students are coming out better. But those are sort of major capital changes, but the fine-tuning in the curriculum is incredibly important, and we want to do that. Other higher education institutions want to do that, and we need you in Olympia. Our senator, all of his colleagues there in Olympia, they all need to know, the governor needs to know, what is it that you need in your industry and how can we in higher education support you? Is it capital investment? Is it operating? We need all those things. So emails, letters, tweets, all of those things are incredibly important and very powerful.
Yeah, if I could jump on there, I'll give you one specific homework item that would be very helpful. So we've got this gap analysis. That came because of 2 years of me, badgering budget writers for some funding. So it's a personality business. So Christine Rolfes, who writes the budget right now, believed in the mission that I was talking about. She appropriated the money. It's now going to do some really good stuff. But it's a very personal relationship. So this new study that we're doing and the colleges are putting together, what is it that we need? Does it involve a professor? Does it curriculum development? What is the ask for this array of East Side schools to provide the workforce that you need? Because one of the things, we found that technical writers in that thing, it's fine to have a biology degree or the certificate, but you weren't getting enough technical writers. Okay, we need to fix that. What does that cost? What's the action item? And there's going to be a document that basically I'm going to have to bring the budget writers next year and say, I need you to fund this so that we can give you the workforce you need on the East Side. And that also goes for Spokane and Vancouver as well. I'm going to need you to sign a letter to say you support this. And it sounds like a silly, easy to do thing, but it's actually how the legislature works. So the more people that I can get onto a letter saying, fund this, please, budget writers, the easier it is to get it funded. So if every company in this room today signs that letter and says, you need to fund this higher ed ask, we'll get it done. But if it's just me out there, it's much harder to do. And that also involves, I saw Representative Slatter here today as well, who comes from your industry. It's basically the entire East Side. I need to get the East Side legislators that represent everybody from Bellevue up to Shoreline to sign that letter and say, fund this and make it a priority for this industry next year.
That's the perfect place to put up our call to action, which just kind of reminds you of what what we've been talking about and where you can engage. So there it is. We need you to share your stories. Go out and talk to classes. We need you to tell them what a great industry this is, to help out with science fairs. Shoreline is going to be putting on a science fair, and they may be calling in need of mentors. Answer their call and help out. Our institutions of higher ed will need guest lecturers. So if you have a particular story that evolved from your lab and you want to share it, if you can't find the right institution, call Life Science Washington and we'll figure out, who would like to hear that story, or just reach out yourself to the biology or the biotech program at Shoreline, the biology program, bioengineering program at Bellevue College. There are lots of good ones out there. And then just underscoring, we've got to talk to our representatives to make them aware that all these issues are a high priority. And with that, I will say thank you. And thank you so much for our panelists. Let's give them a round of applause.